So previously we talked about VOC or the voice of the customer, and we said that voice of the customer many a times would be vague. This will not be very specific. You need to convert those requirements into specific terms, and for that what do is you use a thing called critical to quality parameters, CTQs. So earlier we said that VOC can be vague and difficult to define, and that's where CTQs come into the picture. So what does CTQ does is CTQ break down those customers' requirements, that voice of customer, into small pieces which can be measured, which can be identified. So if the customer says that they want a good service in the hospital or the clinic, then you can break that down into number of items. Number of items could be less waiting time, more attention by the doctor. Let's put a time also, that waiting time less than 5 minutes, doctor time more than 10 minutes, doctor attends to the patient for more than 10 minutes, and then you have some sort of a entertainment when people are waiting. So all these things you can break down. The voice of customer was to have a good service in the clinic, but then you broke that down into CTQ parameters against a single voice of customer, which was that they wanted a good service in the clinic. So as I earlier said, that the voice of customer would be less specific or vague, and the CTQs are more specific items. That's what I am showing here. The voice of customer was the good service in the clinic. That was the voice of the customer. And then there could be number of drivers. Drivers could be the timely, cleanliness, cost effectiveness. These are something in between CTQs and voice of the customer. And then once you break down that, the one of the CTQs could be from registration to the time you see the doctor should be less than 5 minutes. That could be one CTQ. Another CTQ is that the doctor gives you sufficient attention, sufficient times. At that times has to be, let's say, greater than 10 minutes. So that will be one CTQ. And then you can break down that cleanliness, cost effectiveness, all these other drivers also into specific CTQs. So at the bottom, if you see that voice of customer is less specific, CTQs are more specific. Voice of customer is difficult to measure. You really cannot measure that the clinic should be able to give you a good service. You cannot measure that. But what you can measure is your CTQ. So that's the difference between the voice of customer and the CTQ. So understanding the voice of the customer and CTQ is important before you select a project for Six Sigma, because before you really improve something, you need to understand that what you want to improve upon.